Yeah. I care about people who truly understand that one size doesn't fit all. There's a reason why you can't be overly prescriptive about certain things because it truly can never apply to every single person. So I like people that provide frameworks and lenses of evaluation. You'll notice that the phrase joy comes up a lot in my discussions, and a lot of this health and well-being conversation is meant to be so people can actually truly enjoy their lives and find meaning in their lives.
To the Warriors at Work show. This is Jeannie Coomber, your guide and host. This is a show for men and women in the workplace who want to move from the predictable to the potent. This is your weekly dose of inspiration with an edge. I talk with CEOs and shamans, sports marketing executives and therapists. All of us are like-minded thinkers and doers who tell stories, share wisdom, and challenge each other to have the best life possible inside and outside the office. Welcome to your Warrior Conversation. Hey everybody, it's Jeannie. Thanks so much for joining me. Today I get to introduce you to a well-being and wellness guru. Dilan Gomih, Chief Energy Officer and founder of Dilagence. Dilan is a combination of corporate experience, fitness expertise. She went to Yale, Harvard, and she has this unique methodology that has helped people worldwide, especially busy professionals, take control of their time and transform their productivity and performance by prioritizing well-being. And in this conversation, she breaks it all down for us. And one of the things that I love about Dilan is she looks at all of this stuff that feels very complex and complicated and simplifies it. She looks for ways to integrate it into our life. Not only that, she has the most incredible energy and vitality, and it's contagious. You'll feel really good listening to her or watching her share her wisdom. So I hope you're moving when you listen to this. Be well and enjoy. Here we are. Dilan Gomih is here with me. Warriors at Work. Thank you so much for sharing your energy and your story. I cannot wait to talk to you.
Thank you, Jeannie, for having me. I've been looking forward to this conversation all day.
All right, here's where we're going to start. You have such a cool journey. It's Yale, Harvard, Wall Street, and then you decided, okay, wellness is for me. Tell us the story.
So I found my passion for well-being in what most consider to be an unexpected place, which was a Wall Street trading floor. But when I think about my life and what I do now, it actually makes so much sense because I first and foremost discovered that when I prioritize my well-being, everything that I had to do on the trading floor went better. So I had this really, really lucky experience of being able to understand the power of the outcome. Here's what happens when I move, not only first thing in the morning, but during the day. I feel better. The way I approach my work is better. The way I approach working with other people is better. So of course it goes first. Of course it's my strategy for success. And like understanding that movement made my mind better was what made me realize I didn't want to keep that to myself. And more importantly, I wanted other people to be able to move through the world the way that I did. So fast forward, like post business school, I took this kind of dual pronged approach where I learned everything that I could from the corporate space around health and well being. But I continued to work with people that were just like me, the people that knew the what, they knew their health and well being was important, but they're trying to figure out how to fit it into their day. And this well being discovery or the work that I'm doing now is born out of I want other people to have the energy that I have, and one size doesn't fit all. And I got really good at helping people to understand their own toolkit for building it into their lives. So.
The snippet of movement makes the mind better is so true, and even just something so simple like that is so a part of your brand and what you put out into the world. You have this amazing ability to simplify a lot of noise because there's a lot of people with a lot of opinions. And I love that you call yourself a chief energy officer. It's like one of my favorite titles. So I'd love for you to first tell us how do you define wellness? Like, what does it really mean to you? And when you're talking to somebody for the very first time, and we're going to talk about the types of people and the companies that you're working with, but you're in front of the person for the first time, like, define it for me.
Yeah. I define it as well-being, and it's the process of you as your human being well from the emotional, physical, mental, and mindful standpoint. All of these things in concert fuel each other, and nobody is meant to go through life just surviving. Like, we exist in this world to
Mm.
thrive, and that's what well-being is meant to accomplish. Everyone has the right, fundamental right to be well in all of these arenas.
Mm. And when you're first talking to somebody, are you evaluating their relationship to those pieces and then making a determination around what you're going to do next?
Mm, I am listening to what they're saying. I'm understanding, why are you asking in the first place?
Mm.
Versus me being able to say, this is what you're looking for. The beautiful thing about humans is if you let people share and share like really, really, really layers deep into what they're looking for, then I actually, more importantly than evaluating it, am able to be helpful because they themselves are doing the work. We hear all about the five whys, but it's like there's always like three or four reasons why somebody really, really cares about making a change in their life. And
Mm.
I'm really good at the how, but if you let people share, they will tell you the what. So I'm
That
looking for the how can I be
so
helpful?
true. That is so true. When I think about what I do for a living, the more I can get someone to share and go beyond the surface, like that's I mean, I'm in the wellness business too. I guess I never really thought about it, but it's the wellness in the workplace through the lens of the career. And I know you're doing a lot of work inside of organizations. You're nationally recognized. You worked with companies like Google, JP Morgan, Pinterest. Like, so you've started to talk a little bit about your philosophy, but let's take a deeper dive on that.
Can I
Your
fangirl for a second?
Pardon?
Can I fangirl for a second though?
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank
and you're
girl.
pretty great at what you do, and you're like saying nationally recognized, work with all these major corporations. Like, I think we're talking about you.
Well,
Just
you're what
sorry, I had to kind of
well,
drop that in there for the people.
you're in my community. You are so special doing a lot of the same work. And I want to like go scream from the rooftops about how incredibly special you are and the impact that you're having in major organizations because of your philosophy and your approach. So, Dylan, tell this community right now that's watching and listening about your philosophy and your approach. So, you get a call from X, whatever, fill in the blank, chief so and so from Google or Pinterest. What's your next move?
Yeah. So whether it's workshops or actually partnering with the organization to design effective programming for their leaders, the work that I do is really connect the dots between physical well-being and mental well-being. One very clear example I give to folks is everyone can always think about their favorite athletes, and as we're getting ready for the Olympics, so we're thinking about athletes like Simone Biles, who
Mhm.
are doing incredible physical feats. But we're also talking about their mind. We're talking about their mental game and how powerful their mental game is. When we translate it to the workforce, people at the top of their mental game, we leave the physical piece off the
Mm.
table. And it's very much so the case that these two things are inextricably linked. The reason why I say movement makes your mind better is because it's evidence based. When you stand up, you're increasing blood circulation, you're getting oxygen to your brain. You need oxygen for cognitive performance. If you're a leader in the workplace, it's fundamental that your prefrontal cortex, this part of your brain that's responsible for decision making, for problem solving, for impulse control, is functioning well.
Mm.
So I applaud every organization that has corporate wellness. But my question for you is, are your employees actually using it? And if not, are you willing to consider the simple things that will actually make them work better for you? If so, that is where I can plug in.
And so when you plug in, what happens? So let's say they're like, "Yeah, I've got these great corporate wellness programs, but I'm still having retention problems. Lots of people are still calling out sick, or people are taking, there's quite a few people that are on medical leave or mental health leave. So then what?
Part one is we do have the opportunity for me to work with a team and actually do workshops for this team that actually help them find tactical, strategic approaches that fit into their lives.
Mm.
The first part is people don't do things even though they know what to do because they can't understand where it fits into the day. Sure, I could go see the doctor. When? Sure, I want to go take a walk. When? And I'm really good at helping people to think about what is the best strategy for you? What's the business justification, for example, getting up to get a walk? Well, you know what? You're already going to get lunch at some point. Why not just do an extra lap around the office? Little things like that. Or zooming out with the organization where it looks like you've identified a problem. Let's actually think about what people aren't using, what the real problem is, and dive in and create better solutions. The great thing is you've already identified there's an issue. Let me help you dig in and think about
Mm.
what people actually value and will use. Because, of course, all of this is about well being, but it's also about efficiency and it's about revenue. So, if you have an existing offering that isn't working, why would you continue to spend money on it? And why
Right.
wouldn't you reinvest in something that people will, one, use, two, when it comes to retention, the cost of getting a butt in a seat again, as opposed to keeping the butt in the seat that you've already got, way higher. And that loss of
Mm.
institutional knowledge is too big. Let's actually think about what works and start to tweak that number little by little. So those are the two main things.
And what's the typical narrative that you're seeing right now in terms of like whether it's trends or consistent behavior? So you're inside of organizations, you're having these conversations. What are you hearing?
Yeah, I think the biggest one that I continue to hear is definitely this element of I have corporate wellness available, like from the employees. I have corporate wellness available to me. I don't know when to use it, part one. Two, I'm afraid to use it,
Mm.
even when it comes to vacation time. Well, yeah, I want to, but I'm nervous about how it's gonna blow back on me. Like there's almost like this psychological safety element
Hmm.
relative to it. Um, and I actually rarely find that it's if we think about a spectrum where there's like burnout over here and people that are like high thriving over here, it's not that people are at either end. There's a lot of people in the middle, which is why I generally focus on incrementality, which is like, what's the incremental thing for your organization of higher value that will inch people closer to higher productivity? Because if people are already burnt out, that's actually not where you need to focus on saving. Like they're
Mhm.
probably already like beyond that. But if you can make a difference in like this middle zone, this is where you
Yeah.
focus your efforts. This is where you focus the dollars. And it's actually worth it to pull back a little bit to understand what's important so that way you can move them towards higher performing because you've already made this investment to get them there. It's
I love the expression incremental value. I always think of it small subtle shifts.
mhm.
So give us some examples of incremental value, and even if it's hacks, like what are the most
Yeah.
common things that Dylan's talking about?
Yeah, one of my favorite hacks, and this is definitely one from like the mental side, but I use it all the time because it is so true. How many people have a tendency to pick up their phone first thing in the morning? Lots of people do.
It's the
Lots of people
worst.
do. But it makes sense, right? Like first thing in the morning, what are you thinking about? Getting up, getting ready to go to work. But here's what
Mhm.
also happens. The second you pick up your phone, your attention, your first thoughts of the day are diverted to whatever somebody else is thinking, whether it's the
Mm.
news, whether it's an email from a boss, whatever it may be. Anytime we think about these awesome athletes that are getting ready to go out onto the court or play their sport, they're not hyper dialed up or thinking or talking to anybody else. The first moments of the day are their own. And what
Mm.
a beautiful thing it is to take 1 minute to get inside your own locker room, think about what outcomes you want for your day. And then when you pick up your phone, and we're talking about 60 seconds, then when you pick up your phone, the things you read have to fit into that framework. It's a really subtle but powerful shift where you are still in control, but now like you're not getting emotionally hijacked. And these are little ripple effects that transfer into everything else you have to do. The mindset that you have to take to work or to greet your kids or to greet your spouse in the morning and your
Mhm.
efficiency during the day. So when you go back home, the energy that you can give to your loved ones. That's just like a simple example. And I cannot help but point out it's free. I'm so like maybe it's not the most capitalistic thing to do, but a lot of the hacks that I talk about are free and things that are
Mm.
readily available to people because I don't want there to be a reason to wait or you have to get the perfect equipment or get the perfect app to take an action. Absolutely not.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll start that when, or I hear that a
Yep.
lot. Well, let's talk about people that let's really highly functioning, intellectual, big job, big responsibility, and they're like, "Yeah, I haven't gotten to the gym."
Mm, that's okay.
What would you say?
That's entirely okay. The reason why is anytime you make an opportunity for movement, I don't care about time, I don't care how long it is, I don't care where it is, you are doing the best possible thing for your brain to be effective. And particularly when I put on my fitness cap, you don't have to be in the gym to create an effective exercise or effective routine. Literally, if I told you to stand up and sit down 10 times, congratulations, you just did 10 squats. We're laughing, but it's entirely true. And for like, I always like to use Dolly Parton as an example because I love that she's her, part one. I love that she's 78 and has released another album. But I also love that she is somebody that has no problem saying that she hates exercise. Like, that is not her thing. Her thing is dancing. She likes
Mm,
dancing. And we like dissociate the concept of something being joyful and fun from it being effective and powerful and, more importantly, physical activity. So for that person that says, I don't have time to get to the gym, I just ask them to tell me what are the things that you are doing. A lot of the times that something that'll come up is like that they have a pet. I'm like, great, take an extra walk with your pet. Take add
mhm.
5 minutes on to the walk with your dog. Great. You were already going to do a catch up with one of your junior colleagues. Can you walk and do a catch up instead? Great,
Mm,
fine. Like, I am so not discriminatory around how the movement takes place or where it takes place, because the literal definition of physical activity is any voluntary bodily movement that engages your muscles and expends energy. So the place doesn't matter in that definition. The
mm.
actual activity doesn't matter in that definition. You just have to do something.
When you think back on your work and all the people that you've worked with, all the teams that you've worked with, all the executives that you've worked with, what do you have a moment where you're like, that was what I thought was going to be one of my most difficult challenges, and it turned out to be one of my most rewarding moments, or I had such an impact? You're smiling, so obviously there's somebody or a group that's coming to mind.
Yeah. There is a group that it's coming to mind just because it was not my typical audience. It was definitely a high performing, like, legal audience. And uh, more often than not, most of my, up until this point that I'm particularly thinking of, a lot of my work had been in tech or finance or professional services. So it was definitely like a different take on audiences that I worked with. And I very much so have tried to lead my life in a way where I don't really care about just being seen. I don't really care about just speaking. I actually care that it resonates and I really care that it's impactful. And from this, I can still visualize this session from the commitments that people made within the session. So by commitments, I mean them saying, I'm actually going to start doing this now. Like, I'm going to do this. This is something tangible that I'm going to build into my day. So from the engagement in the room to the fact that I was getting ready to leave this conference and somebody said, before I went to my next breakout session, I literally went outside and just did a whole walk around this building. Those are times where I'm like, okay, it hit. It really, really, really hit.
Mm,
Where like it's not just about somebody like saying I will, but it's like I'm doing this.
mhm.
Um, so yeah, that was the first thing that came to mind. Like, literally, this guy kind of almost like chasing me down before I left. He's like, I just literally, I just did it right now. I just did it.
And just like the satisfaction and the joy. And again, that's what I love about this. It doesn't have to be this big, complicated workout routine in the gym before 7 a.m. or after 6 p.m. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be so complicated. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. And that's why I love this notion of like movement makes the mind better. And you take this simple philosophy and you meet the people where they are in their life and just get movement as a part of their way of being.
And you're saying the key word for me, which is just about everyone I work with, they have incredibly complex lives and schedules and demanding responsibilities. The last thing I will do is add additional complexity. I want it to
Mm,
be so simple that you can figure out where it should slot in anywhere. not simply just to check the box, but because if you do it, it becomes the gateway for you being able to take additional steps later. We see this all the time. You take one step and it becomes all these little steps that actually translate to the big leaps. By this I mean, okay, you know what? Maybe you only do the one lap around the office, but then one day it becomes two. And then one day it becomes, you know what? Maybe I'll just try to take a walk on a treadmill, or maybe I'll like
Mhm.
do a little jog outside. Maybe I'll go a little faster.
Right.
Before you know it, the person that just did the laps is somebody that does the jog or does the run if it brings them joy, if it gives them
Yes.
something. But it's always just the gateway. And that's why that first little step and acceptance of this matters actually totally makes the biggest difference.
Yeah. And anybody that wants like a real life example of Dylan's genius here is you did a spot on WPIX
Ah,
where it could be if you're working from home or you're in the office, as how to use office chairs to do squats or
mhm.
even the push-ups off the
Yeah.
back of a chair. I was like, this is so simple. Anybody could do it.
Mhm.
And it was just a brilliant example of how you can just integrate into wherever someone is and just get this movement as something that they just think of and do more often. And then the benefits on the other end, which leads me to my next question, because I would love for you to share what you're seeing as you zoom out and you think about the wellness industry or the future of well-being. What are you seeing? What are you noticing?
Yeah.
Is there something you're really excited and or concerned about?
Yeah. I If I zoom out and think about humanity, I get really excited about the fact that we are living longer, which means that we're also working longer. My concern comes from, are we actually investing in the things over time that will allow us to enjoy the length of our life over time? So there's a lot of discussion about longevity tech, people that are like investing in it. But when I think about the fundamental things that we've done for years, like thousands and thousands of years, that allowed people to survive, it was move, eat well, sleep well. So I worry about sometimes like over complexity or people thinking, oh, I can't afford this. I can't afford these types of
Mm,
resources. I can't afford the personal trainer. So then I can't do it. I worry about that type of messaging versus the elevation of the really important, simple things that everyone can and should have the access to, including education about it. So the second concern is health equity. And when I think about how some populations don't have access to the same type of information about, you know what, taking a 10-minute walk a day can lower your relative risk of mortality, just the awareness of that isn't something that's available to every single population.
mm,
And when I say that everyone has the fundamental right to be well, I view this the same way as the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Everybody should have the ability to live well. And I'd say that third piece is when I think about cardiovascular disease, which continues to be the leading cause of death globally. Yes, there's an aspect of genetics, which, by the way, I know in my own family.
mhm,
But then part two is prevention. And the biggest aspect of cardiovascular disease can be prevention. It can be these things around, are you moving? They say sitting is the new smoking because of all of like the risks to your like blood pressure and like slowing down your metabolism, things like that. Are you eating well? Are you sleeping? Because sleeping is not a passive process. It is something
mhm,
that is an active process. Your body's healing yourself overnight. So the idea that people have little simple things within their own wheelhouse to prevent the number one cause of death is something I think about quite a bit. And I know right now in the culture, there's a lot of discussion about kind of complex things. And I really, really care
mhm.
about diffusing that. And the reason why I start with the workplace is because, well, by the time you get to the healthcare system, it's really, really complicated. And now we're treating the symptoms of disease. But if we can meet people quite literally where they are, and most of them are in the workforce, maybe we can do something about it.
Mm. You remind me when I think about what I see on my Instagram reels, there's a lot of voices around wellness, whether they're functional doctors or they're just self-proclaimed experts. Eat this, don't eat that.
Yeah.
Put mushroom stuff in your coffee. Put uh, eat meat, don't eat meat. Eat
Kale is
this.
so bad. Don't eat
Yes.
kale.
Don't eat vegetables. Only eat meat. And then wait a second, you have to have hydrogenated water. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah. No.
And what it happens is it brings up tons of anxiety.
Yeah.
This is for maybe I'm speaking for myself, but I was just speaking with a group of friends last night, and we were all talking about this. It gives you anxiety, and then it also makes you think, I'm not doing it right. I'm not
Yeah.
doing enough. I need to do more, but I don't know which one to follow. I don't know which one's right. And we lose our sense of self in this process. And so when I think of everything that you're saying and all the experiences that have led to your level of expertise, who are you following
Mm,
and why are you following them?
yeah. I care about people who truly understand that one size doesn't fit all. There's a reason why you can't be overly prescriptive about certain things because it truly can never apply to every single person. So I like people that provide frameworks and lenses of evaluation. You'll notice that the phrase joy comes up a lot in my discussions, and a lot of this health and well-being conversation is meant to be so people can actually truly enjoy their lives and find meaning in their lives. So to that end, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that I'm a huge fan of Arthur Brooks and his work around happiness. And when it comes to um, oh, and James Clear, I do like this concept of atomic habits, because a big thing that I speak about is habit stacking. And this element of a lot of people are trying to look for like kind of like a transformational system, right?
Mhm.
Where it's like, I want to overhaul my life. And I'm like, when we already established the fact that you don't have time to do that.
That's
And
right.
it's not about breaking the system. It actually is about finding the little things that will slot into your existing life, because that's easier. Why don't you want ease? So, like, James
Mm.
Clear is one of these folks that is one of the first people to establish the importance of just find the little tweaks. These translate to the big unlocks.
Mm.
And obviously, I'll follow you to the end of the earth. So, like,
All right. Let's talk about Dylan's life. So now we've talked about how you work with companies, how you work with individuals. I want to peek inside of your life. Like, what are your daily rituals, practices, things that you're working on?
yeah. So, what I will, I think I've done a pretty good job of holding myself to this standard, is I won't recommend something that I myself am not doing or consciously practicing. So, it's not the first 2 minutes of the day. My first 10 minutes of the day, I do start with getting in my own locker room. So I have a devotional that I'll read, but I'll also take 5 minutes to meditate. Like, before I pick up my phone, before I check anything else, that is how I start my day. And the point of like it being a ritual for me
Mm.
is I know the days that I skip it, it's just not as powerful. It's not as impactful. I don't feel like I've actually done everything I've done to set myself up for success.
Mm.
To the point of, again, what I tell people about like how do you fit it in. I do remember the stage in my life where I could be way more judicious about like, I'm hitting 2-a-days, I'm going to work out at 4 a.m., then I'm going to work out at 9 p.m. But the rhythms of life aren't that. So
That's
it's
right.
either the movement practice right at the beginning of the day, or I will figure out how to work it into the day. One of like the things that I'll say that'll make people giggle is like, I'll ask a room full of people like, hey, did you brush your teeth? And people are like, what a crazy question. I'll say like, did you put on your calendar to brush your teeth? And people are like, absolutely not. But then if you didn't find a way to brush your teeth first thing in the morning, would you find a way to fit it into your day? For almost everyone, the answer is yes. Movement is the same thing, which is like, I will usually have my like game plan to do it sometime in the morning, but if for some reason that doesn't happen, I will find the way to build it into my day, and I'll feel pretty good about making it happen. I find cooking to be therapeutic. So not simply just because it allows me to like think about what's going into my body, but there is such like a beauty and an art about cooking, in that if you understand the processes, you also can play a little bit. So you can like, you'll
Mhm.
arrive at a wonderful destination, and it is mathematic in a way, but if you understand like the science and the art together, you can play and still arrive at like a really cool and sometimes like unique
Mm.
outcome. And I'm never staring at a screen. Like that is very much so a time away from a screen. I'm doing things with my hands, and I'm like totally in a flow state when I do it.
Mm.
And this is going to sound so weird. I don't know if my mother will listen to this, because I'm trying to figure out if this will be retributive in some way. And she'd be like, "You do what? And where was this when you were growing up?" I like cleaning. I find cleaning to be such a therapeutic process. Like I love cleaning my
Same.
home. Like
Yep.
I
The
don't know
same
when
way.
I became that person that started going on like Good Housekeeping and reading like the lists about like, ooh, this new product came out. Like, oh no, don't tell me that I just have to spray stuff on. Like, you got to scrub. Like, I am so that person. And now this is going to turn into an ad for like Dylan goes to clean your home. Like, but I love, and there's also this element of like, I'm not somebody that holds on to a lot of stuff. Like I am like, if I spring clean, I summer clean, I fall clean, I do like shedding all of the time of like just this element of, do I actually need this in my home? Like, do I actually
Mm.
need like these papers? Do I actually need like these clothes? Like, I love that ritual cleaning of things that, it's going to sound heavy, but like no longer serve me.
Mhm.
So I do that a pretty frequent amount.
That
And
releasing, don't
the
need that, don't
releasing,
need
don't need
love it.
it. Don't need it.
What about your vices? Like, do you like secretly eat ice cream at night? You got a bourbon collection? Like, what is it?
Well, the ice cream one makes me giggle because I'm lactose intolerant. But if I ate ice cream, I also wouldn't hide it, because I also just very much so view, and everybody has different lenses through the nutrition that's necessary for them. So I'll start there. But I also think that you can kind of treat your life as like a pie and like budget for what you want. So, like I certainly don't feel bad about like the chocolate that I have after dessert or when I want it, because I'll be conscious of how I'm going to account for that
Mhm.
over life and um, throughout my day. The other
The
one that,
the budgeting is a key word.
yeah,
I think that's where people get tripped up, is they may not budget for it. You know
yeah.
what I mean? They're like, "Woo! Yeah, let's get it all in there."
And I really don't like the guilt. And I understand that is
Yeah.
easier said than done, but sometimes we're
Yeah.
like, oh, like I ate this thing yesterday and I feel so bad. And it's just like, you actually have to kind of trust your body is there for you more than you realize, in terms of, then maybe you'll notice maybe you're not as hungry first thing in the morning. Like, we can have a really beautiful relationship with our bodies if we're willing to kind of like check in with it. But
Mm.
I'll hear somebody say like, "Oh, I messed up. I had this donut first thing in the morning," and I'm like, "Okay, you still got the rest of the day. Cool. Like, eat your donut and enjoy the donut. Think of the memories you had with the donut. Now, what will you do? Because you still have plenty of time to account for it in some other way." I'm really like, when it comes to like everything, really try to help people like recount the joy and like reclaim energy for themselves versus spending time thinking about something that's already done. Oh,
Brilliant.
other advice. Because there's like, I think we go back and forth so often about the things that are like, oh, this is good for us. Like there's a 60 Minutes thing that was like, oh, red wine and dark chocolate's good for us. And then some other thing comes out and it's like, actually, it's all going to kill you. So that's the stuff where I'm like, we actually have no gauge on how long life is.
Mm.
So artificial sweeteners, I love
Say that
stevia.
again. Say that
Oh,
again. And please let that resonate for anybody that's listening or watching.
we have no gauge on how long or short life is.
Speak, please.
So we might as well enjoy it. I enjoy stevia. And I have no problems adding it when I want to. Yes, I'm sure there's the things that say the things about artificial sweetener, blah, blah, blah. But if it's not that, it's something else. And there's kind of only so much that you can
Mhm.
manage or micromanage, right? Like at some point, you do have to live. And I very much so sit in that and encourage other people to sit in that and like make your own decisions and spend a lot more time in the joy and the happiness, because there is literally research that says that people that are more optimistic or are able to shift from a negative to a more positive state live longer. So if anything, just counterbalance those things that you might worry a little too much about with a little positive thought.
I heard something on the radio the other day. I think it might have been, I can't remember which channel on Sirius. And he said, I hope you have fun doing unfun things today.
Mhm.
And sometimes we make the fun work, or we just or get too focused. We take it too seriously.
Yeah.
And I was smiling when you were talking about being lactose intolerant. So I have this amazing ice cream shop up the street from me, and I don't really go very much. My kids go all the time, but I went in today and I was like, I'm going to get myself soft vanilla ice cream, and I'm waiting online. And the owner knows me really. He goes, finally, you're giving yourself some ice cream. And I look at him, I go, medium, not a small. I want a medium cup of soft vanilla. And I was walking back, and my neighbors were like, hey, because it's kind of unusual to see me in the middle of the day, dressed up with a thing of ice cream. They're like, ice cream. I'm like, yep. And it's a medium,
Yeah.
not a small,
Yeah.
not a kitty cup,
That's right.
medium.
Medium.
Why? I went to the gym this morning.
Yes,
I
you
eat
did.
really healthy all day long.
Yes, you do.
And I might even have a glass of wine tonight. I might get crazy.
I hope you do.
And I'm going to be loving every second of it.
As you should.
Yes. Yes. That's right. All right. So, Dylan, here's my last question. I want you to look out into the world the next 12 to 18 months. And I want you to tell us, what is Dylan doing and how is Dylan have an impact?
Do I have to speak about myself in the third person?
You could do whatever you are called to do in this moment.
I hope I continue to be of service and able to amplify this messaging, particularly to more people that need it. I view my work through education. So like broadening the platform through which I can provide education, I know is very near and dear to my heart. So I'm very excited to think about how I can do that work and continue to make it so, whether it's my voice or through other types of content, other people are able to hear really important messaging about how they too can access the really easy, free, and quick ways to live longer and happier and thrive. And that's all I want to do. That's all I want to do.
Perfect way to end this conversation. And I hope everybody that was listening, you were walking or running or walking the dog, just moving, listening. Maybe that's going to be the goal here. This is the conversation. We want you moving while you're listening. We want you to be thinking about movement makes the mind better. And then tell us how this has helped the mind. Love it. Love it. Thank you so much for sharing your heart and your energy, this vitality. It's so contagious. And I can't wait to see what is next for you, what that 12 to 18 months looks like for you. And I'm so grateful to be in your circle.
Jeannie, I'm so grateful for you. And thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Warriors at Work show. If you are interested in learning more about what we do at the Warriors at Work show and platform, be sure to go over to my website, Jeannie Coomber, and subscribe to my monthly Warrior Playbook newsletter. I share everything that I'm up to month by month, as well as some lessons and insights that I've learned. I'm also interested in hearing any feedback you have about this conversation or future topics. So reach out to me directly on jc@jeanniecoomber.com or on LinkedIn. Be sure to tell your friends and your colleagues about this Warriors at Work conversation. Subscribe, review, and rate us. It's the best way to get this message out into the world. Be well.